Jimmy McRae, thank you so much for your time and for agreeing to speak to us. As a fan, it would be remiss of me not to talk about your career, because 5 times British Rally Champion, still a record, I believe.
It's still a record, yeah. A couple of people have got close to it, 4, but they've never managed the 5th one. So,
well, you're only a stone away from, a little stone away from the 6th, weren't you?
I was actually the 2 stages away in the Manx Rally with the Metro 6R4. The bloody cam belt broke, and
it's the little things that killed.
It was. Back to that event. Tony Pond led it. He was leading the rally in the Metro, and on the last day, the mechanics turned the rev counter back, and I drove it like an old woman, and I thought we're going to, because I think Russell was behind him, but he was quite a few minutes behind, and we come up to a square left, brake, turned the corner, accelerated. That was it, and I think with 3 stages to go. It was heartbreaking. So.
Oh yeah, especially after a whole season. It was just, it wasn't just one event. Yeah.
It was, well, these things happen. That's rallying. It's happened time and time again. I was 6 times second in the Scottish before I won it.
So tell me how you got into rallying, because everybody has a grassroots story, and
I wouldn't say by mistake actually, but I was into bikes before that. I was into motocross trials bikes, and I took over a business in Lanark here, a plumbing and heating business, and I decided that I couldn't go bikes in case I broke a leg or did something. But a year away and the business was doing well, I thought I went and actually bought a new motocross bike. But my dear wife, she wasn't very happy with that, and she said, "Why don't you try rallying like 2 of my friends did, Alan O'Neill and Tom Clark? Why don't you try rallying?" I said, "Well, I couldn't afford rallying, but then the business was doing all right, and I thought I'll have a go at it anyway." But I mean, I was almost 31 year old and had never sat in a rally car, never driven in the, well, I'd played about with cars in the fields when I was young and things like that. But and after the first rally, in an old Mark 1 2-door 1200 Cortina, but it had a Lotus engine and parts in it. And the first rally we did, it was after the petrol. That's another thing. We bought this car and started working on it, but it was the petrol tanker strike, and there was no rallying, no motorsport. So I had this thing sitting in the garage, and I thought, oh, what a waste. But then the first rally was up in Aberdeen, and went and did that, and we finished 11th overall. And 2 weeks later we went down to the border counties and finished 5th. And I thought, I'm pretty good at this, and that's how it all started. And
that was an impressive start. Straight out the box.
Straight out the box, we said, I think, then I sold that car and I bought a twin cam Escort, Mark 1 Escort. And the first rally I did with that, we went down to I wanted the Lanarkshire Car Club run the Burma rally at the time, and I was wanting an entry in it, and they said, "Oh, you need to get another signature in your licence." So I went down to Barrenfurnace Festival Stages, and Tony Pond was there as a test in an Opel Ascona. He was doing the rally as a test in Ascona, and the halfway halt we were lying second to Tony, and the Escort, and leading a lot of other more powerful cars, and I think we did finish set. We got delayed at one point because the car rolled. We were running well back because of our seeding, and the car rolled in front of us and got held up on the stage. But then we caught up again and finished second, and that was it. And I phoned the clerk of the course for Lanarkshire Car Club. I says, "Look, I've got another signature for my licence. I finished second down here, Barrenfurnace. okay, we'll need to find you a space in the rally then. And I did the Burma Rally. Well, the Burma Rally was part of like the British Championship then. I mean, there was Roger Clark, there was Andrew Cowan, there was Tony Pond, there was all these guys were doing it, and we were seeded in the 16, when the Twin Cam Esco were seeded, I think 78 or something, and we finished 8th.
Oh wow!
And won the class. And at the prize given that night, when we handed out the prize, and this is Jim McRae in his 4th ever rally. I think we're going to see a bit more of this guy in rallying, and that was it.
Oh, that was like the dream start.
It was. No, it definitely was.
And the championships that you went on to win, the British Championships, were all in a variety of cars. It wasn't like, you know, you had to adjust to a different car quite often.
Yeah, well, I decided that, you know, everybody rallied escorts, and I thought, I'm going to rally something different so that be noticed and maybe get, and really got the deal with SMT, which was a big Vauxhall dealership in Scotland, and DTV backing, and I basically had a works drive. It wasn't costing me anything 3 years after I started rallying. So I had more or less, then the 4th year I had a contract with DTV.
And was that the Chevette?
That was the Magnum, Vauxhall Magnum.
Oh, right.
Group 1 Group 1 Magnum, then we went from the Group 1 Magnum to the Chevette.
Yeah, because those, I didn't know you'd rallied the Magnum earlier.
Yeah.
Was that the 2.3?
2.3, that was a single cam car. We did 2 years with that. I wanted to drive the Group 2 car, which had the 16 valve, but DT wouldn't allow this. Said, just calm down, you'll get a drive in the Chevette when it comes out, and I did. Yeah.
Now those Chevettes were quite impressive in their day, anyway. You know.
They were good. They were a match. They were a match for the escorts. Definitely in tarmac, there was maybe I would say a better tarmac car than the Escort, but the Escort still had it was a bit better car in the gravel, you know, the type of suspension and everything it was. But no, they were good cars, definitely.
So, so from the Chevettes, you moved on to.
It moved on to Opel. Then we went from Vauxhall to Opel. In that time, they were separate. You know, yeah. Vauxhall and Opel were separate. They went into Opel. Then it became GM. GM was both Vauxhall and Opel, and everybody said, you know, that it was a bad mistake going from Vauxhall to Opel, because Opel was like the truck division because it was so much bigger. Yeah. But the Opel Ascona 400 was a nice car, and it was well, that's where we start. Well, we won the Irish Tarmac Championship with the Vauxhall, and I won it again with the Opel. But it was the start of the British Championship. It was 81 was the Opel. And
so that did you progress straight through straight to the Manta from that, or was
yes, we did 2 years. Well, 81, 82, 83 with the Ascona. Partway through 83, we went on to the Manta, and that was 84, 85.
Yeah, because that was when I, as I mentioned, I started getting interested in rallying when I was a teenager, and it was the Manta 400s and so on. What was that car like in comparison with the earlier ones?
Oh, the last the last of the 400s, the Manta 400s, was and even, well, the 86 car was a better car than the 85 car. But by that time, you know, the Group B cars, well, they did a Group B Manta, but it was still two-wheel drive. But
yeah.
They struggled against four-wheel drive, you know, and obviously, well, when I left, well, because of the sponsorship we had on my car was AC Delco, and they were pulling out in 85, and GM Dealer Sport were looking for a sponsorship deal for my car, and it didn't happen. So they kept Russell on with the Manta, and that's when I managed then to get the drive of the 6R4, and I was very disappointed that I was getting moved. Well, I was getting fired basically from Opel because we didn't have a sponsorship for the car. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it was probably the best thing that happened, because it gave me a year with the 6R4.
So how did the 6R4 come about? Because that neatly fits into the to where we're heading.
It was a deal. Well, I had nothing, and I went to David Richards at the time. It was David Richards Autosport, and said I had already spoken to what was his name in the Austin Rover, John Davenport.
Yeah,
I'd spoke to John Davenport, but he said they had already signed up Tony Pond. Well, Tony Pond was there, but then they'd signed up Malcolm Wilson. Yeah. And he says, I don't think we can do anything for you, but he says, I'll keep things open. So I went to David Richards, and I said, what about it? I said, I think I could get help from John Davenport, Austin Rover, but obviously did the money to run the car and everything. And David Richards said right away, he says, we'll do it, we'll find the money. And we went and had one Sunday, I flew down to David Richards' place, and we drove from David Richards to John Davenport's house, and we sat down and had a meeting. And David Richards and John Davenport didn't get on all that well.
Oh, right.
And David Richards said to me, he said, I don't think he'll do a deal with me, but we'll see. So when we left on the driving up the road, we said, what do you think? I don't know. I said, I think the deal might be there. He said, well, I don't know. However, on the Monday morning, he got a text from John Davenport, send a van down and we'll give you all the bits, you build the car. So David had to build the car, then fine, well, with Shell, I had a deal with Shell, then I had a deal with Dunlop Tyres, then it was through that David got the Rothmans money, and brilliant. That was how it went. And it was a year I'm glad I never missed. Although it was disappointing at the end that we didn't win the championship, and it was disappointing at the end as well, because there was the possibility that I would have got quite a few World Championship drives the following year, yeah. But then they were banned. The cars were banned.
So the car was built. First test. Jumping into the Metro, what kind of experience was it?
The first time I drove the Metro was from the van to the scrutineering at the breakdown rally. Yeah, I went to a test. An Austin Rover test, and Tony Pond. I sat in with Tony, and at the end of the day, I drove the car in the test. The works car, I can't remember the test, it was abroad somewhere, but I had literally half an hour in the car. One of the things was Tony says, I sat beside Tony, and I thought, once or twice I thought, whoa, and he was smiling all the time because he knew, he says, I'm going to frighten you.
Yeah, I think that was. I can imagine that it's the little bit of the devil in there.
Oh, I know. Because when the mechanics put me in the car, he says, you better tighten your seatbelts. And I said, you're right. And Tony said, I'll bet you spin it when you first time you drive it. I said, no, I'll be fine. However, I didn't. I had one big spin. He says, you've got to watch that, they're short. And Tony was quite a help, actually.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, short wheelbase, 4-wheel drive, big diffs front and rear. Robin Hamilton said they're quite agricultural in a certain because of the just to take all the forces going through. So okay, scrutineering your first drive in the car and you go out on the first stage.
The first drive on the car took a wee while. I can't remember now where I was, but I was getting better. Then it started, it snowed, it was a very snowy event. I thought this will be good 4-wheel drive, but this car was handling terrible. I got to the guys, I said, I accelerate the car and it's going to the right. And so they changed the diff, they changed them, still doing the same, changed things again. I says it's going the opposite way. And on the national breakdown event, in these days you had a chase car at the end of the stage and it would follow you on the road section. And I said, look, we were on the radio to them. I said, look, I'm going to drive along here at 30 mile an hour or whatever it was, and I'm just going to floor it. But I'm only going to touch the steering wheel. I'm not, and you'll see what happened to the car. And when you accelerated, it went to the right. And then they did other changes with it. And I said, it's no better, it was going to the left now. And they said, no, it can be. I said, follow me again. Did the same again, I went to the left. But anyway, I can't remember where we actually finished.
I suppose it was a learning curve for them at the same time.
Well, no, it was. And the rally to finish up was stopped because the weather was that bad. The stages, the opening car and ambulances couldn't get into the stage, so they stopped the rally, which we thought, thank God for that. And it wasn't until the guys went back, they'd been on to Austin Rover as well to see what was happening. They thought, I don't know what's causing that. And it wasn't until they got back and they took all the tyres and everything off the roof of the van and they were rolling them along the workshop, and they noticed that the tyres were different sizes.
Oh goodness!
Dunlop had made a cock up of it. They had given us the snow tyre. There was only the snow tyres. And the two stages I did where we were on normal. I think we were tarmac at one point. Then there was another one where it was the normal gravel tyre.
Yeah.
We were either quickest or second quickest in that stage. But whenever we went on to the snow tyre, and it never dawned on anybody.
Yeah.
And that's it.
It wouldn't, would it?
And I got a photograph through the next day. The mechanic said, we found a problem with your car. And he says, it's nothing to do with Austin Rover, it's nothing to do with us, it's bloody Dunlop. And of course, when they were changing the tyres round about.
Of course, they just swapped. Yeah.
So I thought, oh well, that's another learning curve.
Now that's another thing I remember hearing about 604, that the hydraulics were powered by the front diff, which they discovered in the snow stages in Sweden meant that you had no hydraulics because it was slipping. So
oh right, I can't remember that. Oh, there were one or two things about it. The what was the other thing with it? The power steering.
Actually, I think it might be the power steering that was powered from the front diff.
Power steering, aye. The power steering wasn't. It wasn't the best, but I mean, we managed with it. Yeah.
So that was the first rally. We'll if you're happy to, we'll go through the season and because this is.
Well, the second rally was the Circuit of Ireland.
Yeah.
And again, I can't remember. We had a problem early on. We were lying. David Llewellyn was leading in the Metro. Then I think we had got in front of David, and then we were leading.
It was between the two of you.
Yeah. Then on one of the night stages, I clipped. There was a dry stone dike, and there was a rock sticking out, and I just caught the wheel, and it broke the front track control arm, and that was us out. So that was a disappointment, because I think we were giving David a good run for his money in the Circuit of Ireland. But anyway, then the next one was a disappointment as well. Was although we finished second in the Welsh rally, we were having a real ding dong battle with Hannah Mikula.
That's right, and wasn't that the one where David had the big crash as well?
David was leading initially, then he had a big crash, which, you know, to have the type of crash he had and to see he'd come out the car, because there were a lot of people thought they weren't that strong, the cars, you know, but I mean, he tested it to the best.
I spoke to him last year, and he was full of praise for the 6R4, and he said it was that shell and that cage saved him. He said he mentioned that crash.
And a lot of guys said, oh no, it was because it was a smaller cage, and it was sort of built in, you know, to the car more than, you know, the bigger diameter cages, and a lot of people said, oh, I don't know about that, but David tested it. So I went on after that. Then we had a real ding dong battle with Hannah Mikula,
and he was in an S1, wasn't he?
Aye, he was in the Audi, and we had, I can't remember what the lead was, like a 40-second lead, and two stages to go. Then everything was all, we went into a service, his car was all done, jacked down, went to drive out, and the car stopped. Went back in, and it was a fuel pump. Well, by the time they changed the fuel pump, we had dropped, we had got road penalties because we were running late. So we dropped from what would have been a definite first place, I think, to second.
So it was competing with the 500 brake horsepower Audi.
Audi, and back in the earlier days, I was never as confident in the Welsh forests, because quite often Russell and I had a ding dong, and Russell would get the better of me in the Welsh forest, and that was the first time that I'd led the Welsh rally, and it was, were chuffed to bits, but then simple thing like that happened, you know. So, anyway, that was another thing. The pumps were in a very difficult place to get at, and it just took the mechanics that long to change the pump, and well, we got the road penalties, but we still finished second. What did we do after that? Oh, the Scottish.
Yeah.
But that was a disaster. Every metro except one. All the metros retired with dust. The dust problem, the dust get into the engine.
Right.
Tony Paul and David Llewellyn, mine, and there was, I think, Per Eklund. The only one that finished was David Galander. He was running a private one.
Yeah.
He was the only metro to finish out of, I think there were 6 metros in the rally, and David was the only one to finish. So that was a bit of a disaster. That was an air cleaner problem.
Yeah.
And all the works cars, which David's wasn't a works car. It had an older design or something, but it was a better design. Ulster. Oh, we won the Ulster.
Yes.
We won the Ulster. I can't remember much about it, but I know we won the Ulster.
Very fast though, that event. I mean,
it was.
Going through the dry stone walls.
No, it was. Then obviously the Manx, and you know, we were lying a second to Tony, and you know, very comfortable. And the last day, I think we were going to win the championship, but it didn't happen. Bloody cam belts.
Did you do the RAC that year?
Did the RAC that year as well, and again Dunlop let me down because I think we had 6 punctures. We were there. I think we finished. Can't remember. We finished 7th, something like that. But we were up swapping times with Tony Pond in certain stages, and we were there or thereabout. But there was 6 punctures we had, 6 or 7 punctures. So
Well, I might well have seen you because that was when I was at college. At finished college that day, and they were overnighting at Aintree.
That's right.
Not Aintree, at Albert Dock.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And I got as close as I am to you to the cars, and it was that was what got me hooked.
So
you probably drove past me because I saw all the 6R4s driving past. So we've almost met before.
It was a year. I'm glad that I didn't miss. I mean, it was there were a lot of disappointments, but to drive that car and really gutted that the whole Group B was.
To be honest, I find that frustrating because it seems to be politics more than. The problem was the crowds.
The crowds. It was nothing to do with the cars.
You see people coming out to try, to get closer to the cars. And I mean, as a cameraman, I've had to film cars at speed on tracks, and I'm always cautious to take everything possible. You know what I mean? I wouldn't jump out into a track and try to get back again. It's just ridiculous.
It was ridiculous, and they had a bit better control in the UK. In fact, they had a far better control in the UK. But when you went to Portugal and these places, I mean, you turned a corner and they were there. They opened up and you went through at 60, 70, 80, 90 mile an hour. Yeah. These silly buggers.
Did you ever experience any of that?
Yes, I did. We did San Remo with that car. No, we didn't. I did Court and Glaze. With the Metro 6R4 as well, and a round of the championship, and I think we finished second or third. Carlos Sainz won it. He was in what was he in? Toyota? I can't remember. But Carlos won it. We were either second or third with the Metro. Court and Glaze Rally.
Yeah. How does that car rate amongst the cars that you've driven? How does it rank amongst the cars?
I was the most. I wouldn't say it was the nicest car to drive, but if you got everything right in the Metro, you come out with a smile on your face. No, it was just. And in these days, there was no fly-off handbrake or anything like that. You had to set the car up. To get it to where you were. It was quite a different car to drive compared with what I was used to, a rear-wheel drive man to a handbrake, and there wasn't the handbrake didn't work in these things. Well, the handbrake worked, but it locked all four wheels. But I think later on, the ones that came out on the City National Championship, they had like fly-off handbrakes. They could lock the back diff. They could separate it. They could. Separate the centre diff so that you just locked the back.
So the year after, before we move on from Group B, had Group B continued, you said that you might have got some international rallies as well. Yeah,
there was the possibility that Rothmans were going to come and we would have got some World Championship events. So it was a kind of double blow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the world governing body, it was more, like I said, I think it was more politics than
politics. Then the thing is, well, because of the death of Henry Toiven, and but the Lancia was a different car. That Lancia that he drove, I mean, they were actually sitting in the petrol tank. The petrol tank was under the seat. It's the Ford and the Metro,
and the Peugeot as well,
and the Peugeot as well. I mean, they were a safer car, I would say, than the Lancia. It was a shame. It was, but that's how it happened.
How close do you think the Metro was to being a World Championship car?
There were quite a few modifications going to be in the car for the next year, which would have, I'm sure it would have helped things again. But then again, the other manufacturers are the same, so I don't know. It was against the might of Lancia and Audi. It was going to be a tough job.
So the next year was a Sierra Cosworth?
Sierra Cosworth. The next year was supposed to be I had a contract with RED, Rally Engineering Development, and we were supposed to be running a Lancia, which was going to be Group A at the time, because Group B was banned. But right up until the last minute, in fact, the National Breakdown Rally, we rallied a pretty standard road car because all the parts hadn't come to build the car, and at the finish up trying to deal with the Italians, it was just impossible. And then again, I got the job of speaking. Well, went to Ford, went to David Ashcroft, and said, could he help out? RED would build the car, and the same thing happened there. He says, right, okay, get RED, send the van down, and it was like 3 weeks before the Circuit of Ireland. And again, the first time I drove the car was in Ireland, going to the scrutineer and then driving it from there. And I think that was a kind of fairy tale. That again, I was invited, similar to Austin Rover, I was invited before Dover to do a test where Didi Oriol was testing his Cosworth in France. I was invited over there to get a drive in the car. The car kept breaking the back differentials, and I never even sat in it. I didn't even get sitting in the car, never mind driving it. So I come back and I said to RED, there's not much chance of finishing the Circuit of Ireland with this when they can't do a test without breaking the back axle, without breaking the back diff. And the engineer at the time, he said, I know what's wrong with the diff. He says, well, we don't have a problem there. And we went to Circuit of Ireland. We had two diffs, rear diffs, and took one out every night and put another one in, and then he would check it the day and change the diffs. Well, we went on, and again, it was like thrown in at the deep end with the Metro. The Ford had never driven a turbo car in my life before, and hadn't tested the car at all. We went on basically the suspension settings that Ford had, although we softened them a bit because it was Ireland, because it was the bumps and the jumps in Ireland. And that was a fairy tale. That one went on and won the Circuit of Ireland. And David Ashcroft phoned me the morning we could come back. How did RED manage to get that car, 600 stage miles it was then, to the end? And I said, you'll need to speak to the engineer. But I said, we had two differentials and he changed them every night and checked the ones, the one that came out, checked it the following day, then it went back in the night. And I said, no problems. And other than that, I don't think we had a problem with the car.
What was it like as a driving experience? Because it looked, all of a sudden they were slower, more unwieldy, perhaps cars.
They probably in a straight line. They weren't all that much because it was a turbocharged. It was a quick car. It was and because of because it was Group A, you couldn't do so much with the differential and the gearboxes. So it was a quick car on a straight line. But the big problem with the Sierra Cosworth then, it was quite a heavy car, and it also had enormous turbo lag in it. The turbo lag was, but you just had to get used to it. A lot of people started driving left foot braking and keeping it, but I managed to master it without doing that because I started to do it, but you were sometimes in the brake when you shouldn't have been in the brake. And
I've never mastered that. I've tried.
And the fact that it's a synchromesh box, you had to always go back to the different. If it was a straight cut box where you didn't need a clutch, but you always needed the clutch. So no, that was.
And that was another championship year, wasn't it?
That was the first championship win. Yeah.
So.
No, not the first championship win. It was because I'd won it.
Yeah.
Before with the Opel, so it was the first any championship win for Ford.
Yeah.
You know, and they had. Well, did Russell have a Ford the first year? No, I think Russell had the Astra. I think, didn't he? The first year.
I know he tried. I know he tried a Delta, and he didn't like it much.
No, that was later. That was later on the RAC, I think. No, I'm not just sure. Before they had they did the British Championship with
Mark Lovell.
Mark Lovell. There was somebody else in the Sierra that year. There were two were Sierras than ours. Then the following year after that, then Russell could the Andrews Heat for Hire Sierra as well.
And from there, it's sort of moving on through the end of the 80s.
Well, that was 87.
Yeah.
Then in 88, I won the championship again, and that was the year I won the Scottish after being 6 times second.
Oh, that must have been the
it was. I mean, the year before 87, I led the Scottish with the Sierra right up until the last night, and I had a good lead over David Llewellyn in the Toyota. No, he was in Audi. He was in Audi. I had quite a good lead over him. Then I clipped a tree stump it was, and bent the back arm, and we lost almost a minute, but we had still time in hand. The guys changed the back arm, and I think again it was about the third last stage, sitting on the line. You know, still had quite a few seconds up our sleeve, and put the clutch in, put it into gear, and the clutch cable broke.
Oh no!
So the guys at the start line pushed us back, then pushed us forward and started it in gear, and away we went. But we lost a minute there, and dropped from first to second again. Now, but then in 87 we managed to won the Scottish in 87, which was nice.
Yeah. And the years after that?
89 was a kind of mixed year in 89. That was when Colin started. Yeah. He initially drove the Group A car, then swapped over, and I think my mind was more on him than.
Yeah.
I made I didn't make any mistakes, but I didn't win the championship that year, and then in 19 after that it was just some odd events I did with when and when I could, but I'm more interested in looking after Colin.
Of course, Nick Strafford, thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us. Tell us the inspiration for this car, because there's a story behind why you did it.
Well, I'd been a Vauxhall fan ever since my father bought his first new car, which was a Vauxhall Viva in 1971. And I've always had this connection with them. And when historic rallying started with the post-historic class, that then enabled us to use some of the older stuff that I like the Forenzas. But the problem with them is the engines were not easy to get parts for. And I thought, I'm going to have a look on the internet and see if there's anything else out there. I knew I had a friend who got one of these cars, but his was a road car. And the rules state that you've got to be able to prove that a car was used on rallies in period. And so I did some surfing on the internet and found this and thought, right, great, that's where I'm going to go to. So I managed to get hold of the guy, one of the guys who rallied one of these over in South Africa. And I rang him up and I said, can you remember the specification of the car? And he said, oh, I don't know, it's 30 odd years ago, I'm not sure that I can do that, but I'll give it some thought, I'll send you a fax. Anyway, true to his word, a couple of days later, a fax arrived and it said, Dear Mick, they built 100 of these cars to homologate them for racing. I thought we could use this as a rally car. They told me it would never work. They were wrong, it did. If you do this, this, this and this to the car, you will annihilate escorts. Kind regards, Jan. And to be fair, I took this to the Motorsports Authority, which is now Motorsport UK. I took that to them and said, this is the specification that we've been told they ran in. And they said, yeah, great, go for it. So we built it over a period.
So explain for the uninitiated who haven't even seen the car yet, right? It's not a normal Forenza engine. They did something a bit special.
They did, yeah. They managed to get hold of, I think it was 104 5-litre engines from America, which you'd think to yourself, well, surely that's not difficult. But back then, when the boss of GM South Africa contacted America and said, can we have these engines? They said, how many do you want? He said, we want just over 100. They said, no, we'll do you 10 or we'll do you 10,000, but we're not doing 100. And this guy pestered and pestered and pestered until eventually they did. So they sent over the engines, they sent over some 4-speed Muncie gearboxes, and a guy called Basil van Rooyen over in South Africa put these cars together with a fair bit of help from General Motors. They started racing them and the things were incredibly successful. They were a lot quicker than the V8 Capris and were doing really well. And then unfortunately, the fuel crisis hit in 1973 and that was the end of it. So they disbanded the team, they sold the cars off. The race cars, they're supposed to have been broken for spares, and certainly the rally cars were broken as well, so none of them exist. So what we did with this is we built the best replica that we could do of the car back in its day. And we brought it out in 2010, and then we've been using it ever since, and it's just been a fantastic journey.
At Western, when I was there, this is the only car that got more attention than the Group B cars. It was the loudest car, the most spectacular car, and it was instantly the crowd favourite, which I presume is a lot of what it was aimed at. But you've got a Camaro V8, 4-speed gearbox,
4-speed Muncie gearbox.
Rear axle?
Volvo. Yeah, it's a Volvo. I think it's either a 240 or a 940, 960.
I think it'll be a 940 or 960 because ours has got an automatic. It comes with a limited slip diff.
Ah, right.
So it's that.
So that's probably this is obviously this has got a limited slip diff as well.
Having the axle.
Yeah, that's what they used back in the day, and we found it to be a really, really strong axle, which it needs to be, as you can see.
You know, my dad's going to be so happy because Vauxhall with a Volvo axle is what we're driving now.
Yeah, absolutely. They're an amazing thing. It was really one man's vision, which was Basil van Rooyen, who wanted to do this. I believe he fell out with the Ford team manager, and he approached General Motors and said, "Look, I want to do this." And interestingly, the guy who backed him from GM, the boss of GM South Africa, was a guy called Bob Price. And Bob Price left there, came to Vauxhall, saw Ford's winning the RAC rally year in, year out, and said to a guy called Bill Blydenstein, who was running the Works Vauxhall team back then, what do we need to do to win the RAC? And he was the guy that then sorted out the Chevette HS. So the guy's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He's long dead now, sadly, Bob Price. I'd have loved to have met him. But yeah, I was always hoping that this car was going to be popular with the spectators. It's probably exceeded my hopes. It seems more popular than that. Some people don't get it. Some people, you know, are not really into V8s. But
there was a little kid right next to me, must have been about 4.
Yeah.
And he was going, the growly car's coming.
Yeah, that just about sums it up. Yeah. It was great. Western Park, we get the opportunity to run the ultra loud exhaust that we've got every so often, and Western was one of those events. It was great. It's a megaphone, so it's not just louder than a standard exhaust, it actually amplifies the sound, so it's shatteringly noisy. And people ask me why I'm deaf, and I don't think I need to explain that now.
To drive, I mean, okay, you've got all that. I mean, how much power is it?
This has got what we call it a demonstration engine. This one's 555 brake horsepower. Yeah, and you can hoon about in it like I do, and generally, you know, make a fool of yourself and so on, but try and entertain the fans. Or you can drive it like Jimmy McRae drives it, because Jim's driven this now. It's got to be well over 20 times on events. He did the British Historic Rally Championship with it and helped us with the development of the car. And if you drive it like him and you feed the power in and you drive it properly, then it's amazing just how quick this thing is.
And let's bring it to the star car, Mick Strafford's V8 front end.
Yeah.
Tell us your impressions of that car.
Well, Mick phoned me just out of the blue. And I didn't know Mick or anybody or this guy was even there. Is it true that you were invited over to South Africa to drive the V8 Magnum Forenza? I says, I was actually, but GM Dealer Sport, they wouldn't allow me to go because it was like...
Well, it was. If I remember correctly, it was a sort of a scope's work job, wasn't it?
They didn't allow me to go because any time it was like the week before a rally here, right. And they said no, I couldn't go. So he says, you never got to drive one. He says, you want to drive one? I said, how would you mean? He says, I've built one. I said, yeah, I know, definitely. We went and first time I drove, I thought, oh Jesus. Then we went and we did. We did Rally Legends. We did the Rally Legends. He was invited over to the Rally Legends and drove it over there. Well, I drove it there, and we were getting on all right with it, keep making changes to it because it handled something terrible. It was just a car with a load of power, but nothing else. But we kept changing the shockers and change bits and pieces. Then, and we thought we'll try wider wheels in the front. So we put wider wheels in the front. And we did in the other stage. And bloody hell, we came down to absolute flat out down to it was the big bales. You know, like a chicane through the bales. Foot in the brake. Foot went right to the floor. Oh, so. hit the bale side or hit that one and that one. So drove out, but the exhaust was hanging off it, and then I could smell petrol. And I thought, bloody hell! So we stopped, and it burst the fuel tank. That actually burst the floor here. Right.
It's okay.
The floor. It was the fuel tank or the fuel pumps or something anyway. The fuel pouring out this, and this exhaust was trailing in the ground. I thought, oh goodness, yeah. So the finish up was stopped in the road section and reversed it over onto the curb, and it was like the grass verge, and the fuel ran out. Then we thought, right, we'll get the car up. So they towed the car up to the service area, and had a look at it. And when they'd put the 8-inch wheels in the front, the wheel was rubbing in the caliper.
Oh.
So I thought, well, they fixed it and we went on. We did the rest of it, of the following day, I think. And I thought, oh no. And he said, what about doing a rally? I said, we'll need to go testing then. So we went testing and we actually got the car. To finish up, the car wasn't bad. You know, but the spectators loved it. You know, the V8, the roar of the V8, and to be honest, I enjoyed driving it as well.
It really is fast, and the suspension's great on it, so it hooks up really, really well. And we're allowed to run wider tyres now than we were at first. At one time the rules were we could run 185 70s and that was it. Well, now we can run slightly wider ones than that and better rubber, and you can get so much more traction. And if you're taking it seriously and you're on a proper event, you can really get this thing to shift.
Yeah.
But by the same token, it's also very, very easy to light up the bike tyres.
But I bet you with the power and the handling, it's actually surprised. I have a gut feeling that this is actually relatively easy to drive, because it must communicate quite quickly when it's going to go and slide easily, and
yeah,
it's easy to catch, I imagine.
Yeah, one of the things you can do with this car that's harder with an Escort is you can start the back wheels spinning and then you can keep them spinning. So whereas with an Escort, they tend to, so they'll get so far sideways on tarmac and then they'll try to straighten themselves up. With this, because you've got so much power, you can just keep sliding it, and it's just tremendous fun. Jim was once asked which was his favourite rally car of all time, and he said the Metro 6R4, because it was Group B. He was in the middle of the Group B thing. It was exciting. The car was amazing. And then somebody said, well, what was the most fun? And he pointed at this and said, that by a country mile. And I think it doesn't get any better than that for me, because I've been a fan of Jim since the 70s.
And, you know, with some good results with it, quite often, because it was the class we were in, we weren't in the Mark II Escort class, we were in the Mark I Escort class. Because of the age of the car, I think we won our class most times we were out, and we did the Roger Albert Clark rally with it, and I think we finished 11th overall, and we were the first non-Ford Escort. They were all Mark II Escorts in front of us. We were the first non-Escort.
So a lot of happy memories of that car.
Yeah, no, definitely, no.
It struck me as something that was an interesting drive.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. You do it in Ireland. They loved it. I loved it in Ireland, you know.
Well, I filmed the car at Weston Park.
Oh yeah.
And the crowd just, I mean, it's the only car that people loved more than the Group B cars.
That's right.
Because of that engine, I think.
And it makes a bit of an animal in it as well. he keeps you don't throw away any tarmac tyres, you just leave them. He gets another 5 mile out of them before the burst.
Oh yeah. Mick said that he's not a driver in your calibre, so he's there to entertain.
He does as well. You see him off the line. He leaves about 100 yards, 2 light marks.
Yeah, I've got it on drone. I've got a drone shot, and it's like 2 big, a great big 11 all the way up the tarmac. But the crowd loves it. So, he knows what he's doing.
No, I mean at first when I drove it, I thought, when we drove it in the Rally Legends, well, it wasn't time, but you drive it as quick as you want to drive. But then when he says, what about doing a rally? What about doing a historic rally with it? And then, I don't know whether I should do this or not, but no, I did and enjoyed it. And, the end, it was very reliable. I mean, we did that Roger Albert Clark, which, is a long event. And, to come 11th overall and I was pretty chuffed with that amongst all the escorts.
Right. This is where my stupidity comes in. Is there anything I've left out? Because I think we've
I don't think so. No, I think we've covered it pretty well.
Well, Jimmy, thank you ever so much. It has been a genuine privilege to speak to you, and a pleasure. Thank you very much.
No problems. Fine.